The subject of this stream is my wheelhouse. I'm excited for today's stream because it's something we don't get to talk about. It's exciting to see something new. Even if it's not quite in our wheelhouse of, custom stuff, it's in someone else's wheelhouse. And I think there's a lot of room for new things in the hobby. And not for nothing, I kind of feel like the last for a while, I don't know how much exactly, but the last little bit in the hobby has been a lot of like fine-tuning and iterating and getting things right, which is fun in its own regard, but it's also cool to see something different. Let me go over the premise of this stream. We're going to be taking a look mainly at the Ducky, all right? The Ducky 1X Mini, the 60%. There's two versions of it. There's a full size, which I thought was surprising and actually kind of nice that there's a full size for this, as well as a 60. Here's the premise of the stream. I have been trying gaming keyboards, in particular the analog stuff, so like Hall Effect and even this guy over here, so inductive. It's the only one of its kind. I've been trying them since probably last summer. It's been a while, and I have tried about 8 of those different boards. I think out of all 8, the only 3 notable ones that I ended up using the most were the Ducky, the Wooting, which I have on my desk as well, and then the Boog. I've been using them for a while, exclusively almost for my gaming computer. I've been using the Ducky since December 2nd, so it's been a while. And then in between that, what I've been doing is I've been kind of using the Ducky, which we'll talk about today, and then also the Wooting one, kind of side by side, sorta. So what I would do is kind of just unplug them at the end of the day and just see which one I want to grab, But I think the Ducky was a little bit more my style, sound-wise and feel-wise. So, maybe you can imagine which one I end up grabbing more. But it was an interesting take. It was an interesting kind of It was an interesting kind of vacation, I guess, from using just MX switches. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at, I guess, the pros and cons of just exclusively the Ducky, and then what I kind of ended up finding out. Now, the inductive switches are neat. The inductive switches are a little bit different than the Hall Effect ones. Basically, the big difference from what I've learned and from what I've done my research on is the Hall Effect switches basically use a sensor per switch to kind of read where the magnet is, which is cool. You can get a little bit more technical if you want. There's tons of other technical charts on those. And the inductive ones, they're not using a magnet, nor is there one chip per, switch here. The inductive ones are using an inductive coil, and it's going to read basically a disruption, which you'll see in the switch, and it basically scans the whole PCB. One of the things that Ducky, I guess, was trying to aim for with this, but I don't know, I was reading some other articles about this as well. Ducky, and there's some truth to this, where the inductive switches and inductive technology stuff is a bit more power efficient, but with more modern advancements in some of the HE stuff, it's not necessarily the biggest factor anymore. Although it still plays some effect to it. It's not as big as people would think. But what do you guys think? This is the case for it. So a few things I want to bring up about the case. Few things to this. It's a plastic case. The price point on this is $140, $139. Honestly, not bad. 139 USD. It's actually not that tall. And I can show you guys with the calipers. I thought this was going to be 22 millimeters or something like that. And I guess the best way to measure this is literally here to here. But it's not crazy tall. I thought this was going to be I guess visually it looks taller than it is. And you know what I think it is? I think it's this. I think it's this curve outwards. And I think that is jarring to our eyes. And it's yeah, this is a tall keyboard. I guess what they thought visually is this would be a little bit more, daring looking by having this front piece done outwards. Ducky, I really wish you had done this the other way. I really wish this was done as a cherry lip. Yeah, it's like a cherry underbite for sure. I really think that could have just added a secondary level of comfort. Not that you'll notice this though, in my gaming with it, I never noticed this being disruptive at all. It has some flip out feet. It's made of plastic. You can do 2 different heights over here. Pretty standard gamer stuff, or I guess mainstream stuff. And then we have a Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz toggle, as well as the wired toggle, USB-C, And then we also have our receiver here in the back. It also came with a cable and some other stuff in the box too, which we can go over at the end. But overall, the case looks nice. $140 for something new is also cool. The build quality was great. Like, I had no problems with it. The keycaps, we'll talk about them in a little bit too, but the keycaps feel good. The switches felt good. The case construction felt good. It has a nice weight to it. I'm happy with it. Nothing stands out as bad. So right off the bat, I'm happy with it, albeit it's plastic, might not be everyone's cup of tea. Also, keep in mind, we're going to come at this from, like I said, a few different perspectives here. But just be open-minded with this, guys. It's not a custom keyboard. It's not, the target market isn't going to be people who are into custom MX keyboard. I kind of want to do the sound right off the bat because I feel like, it's kind of cool. But Ducky's doing this whole thing, which, let me show you guys the box. They're calling it, like, Quack something or other. I don't remember now exactly what they're using. Quack Mechanics over here. Like, you guys can see it on the back of the box. I'm going to be honest, I don't love their... Like, Ducky's cool and all, like, with their marketing sometimes, but I feel like the Quack Mechanics thing is a little bit... It's a little lame. Like, I'm not going to lie. But it's basically stuffed with foam. And it's stuffed with a whole bunch of different foams, which, again, it's great that they included all that foam, and it makes the board sound okay. Like, let me show you guys really quick. It's not bad, right? And I think an interesting point is this is the Lubing 80HE, the zinc alloy one. And I'm not here to put down Lubing at all, because this was also an excellent keyboard. But yeah, it's a nice sounding board. Even feeling wise, I actually feel like this one here feels a lot nicer, albeit it's stuffed with foam, so it's still a little bit rigid compared to the Lubing. I don't know. I overall just preferred the sound profile of this one. Again, typing experience was good. I liked it. It was a bit, kind of in the middle, I always say. It's like this one here leaned a bit more rigid. These are the switches. They're technically hot swap, but keep this in mind. There are no other switches like this on the market, so you can't hot swap them to anything but themselves. Also, this didn't come with any extra switches, which I feel like they should have included like one or two. But there's only this particular switch on the market. And the way this works, like we were talking about, it uses induction coils. Look at this. This is the switch. So it has these like metal spikes, I guess, that pop out. And they disrupt the signal, which can be measured, which is really, really cool. It's interesting. In my findings and doing research for like the last 2 months and just talking to both Ducky and other people and reading about a whole lot of things, like I was like, what are the benefits of these? Like realistically, let's cut to the chase. Like, why would I want this over something like Hall Effect? Well, the real big benefit, other outside of power consumption, because I feel like that's negligible, these technically in the long run will be more precise, which I thought was really neat. And it might not mean a lot to everyone. And I think that's also important to keep in mind. Hall effect switches have magnets. Magnets technically can degrade over time. They have some disruption potentially. They're not all made the same. Even calibrating all of the Hall effect sensors the same, because again, this is one thing that scans the entire PCB versus individual sensors, can be a little bit daunting of a task. And then again, you're also using the switch. Maybe not all switch manufacturers are, making switches the same. Precision here, because this is interrupting a consistent induction coil, which is, it's never going to change in theory. This should technically be more precise. These are not a magnet. This is just a piece of metal. In the long run, this should be more precise. Now, how much does that mean for you in real life use? I don't know how long a magnet would last in one of these things, or can make an assumption that this should be fine for a long time in something like a standard Hall effect board. But I mean, if that matters to you, if you want the most in precision, then maybe this is something that would mean more to you. Now, I was actually hearing some complaints about the lubing. Some people I spoke to while they were testing some boards as well were saying that the internal, like the lube of these weren't that great. And I will comment. I feel like I feel like there's no good way to do this on these switches though. Like opening these up, I can show you guys. But I feel like these suffer from the same old stuff that we always see when it comes to mechanical keyboards and pre-lubed switches. Like this one here is not bad. There's not a lot of extra lube, but you can see there's some lubricant that's kind of just applied, you see, on the metal spike in the middle. And you'll be able to kind of see that, and I assume that gravity will eventually do its thing, and, eventually this will start sliding out of the switch as well. Maybe just don't include lube there. Maybe that's the thing. Is there room for improvement on this, like the pre-lubrication? Yeah, I feel like there's room for improvement here. Maybe even using a dry lube, which is also equally as popular these days. But definitely some room for improvement. And the next thing would be gaming performance, because this is also going to be something that matters to a lot of people. Gaming performance, and when I say that, I mean like latency, response times, all that stuff. It felt great. Like I don't have any sort of way to measure these things, and I feel like I'm not the person that can do those things. I feel like you're going to have to go to a different review for that if you're interested in the product at all. But I didn't notice anything. This is a 1K polling rate. I've always been on this particular side of the thought process of which I don't personally think the majority of people are going to need more than 1K. I think for a mouse it's different. I feel like for a keyboard, not so much. But I also understand the premise, and someone told me this once, recently, and I think it makes a lot of sense, where if you just have all the best gear in the world, the only thing left to blame is yourself when it comes to if you screw up in a game. There are probably use cases, like someone just mentioned, maybe Osu, for sure. 1K is enough for someone who considers themselves I would say maybe more than casual gamer. And then the stabilizers. The stabilizers are plate mounted. Now, if you guys know me, listen, I know there's a lot of people who hate plate mounted stabs. If you guys know me, I have no personal quarrels with plate mounted stabs. These stabs felt good. I had no issues with them. On my original unit, I did have to tune them up a little bit more after about a month of using it. I don't know the lubricant that they've actually used in these, but yeah, stabs were good. No quarrels with stabs here, as someone who kind of min-maxes their board. Now, I'll talk about a pro with software. The pro is, it's very simple. It was a pretty straightforward piece of software to use, albeit it's not the nicest looking UI. But I kind of understood it rather quickly, and yeah, it was pretty simple in that regards. Ducky did mention in their press kit that they're going to be expanding on it, but I'm going to say this. We're going to talk more about the software, which I feel like might be this board's weakest point towards the end here. But yeah, the only positive I can really bring to you guys right now is if you're just not interested in all the features that these style keyboards will have to offer, then the software is simple. And it's web-based, which is also a huge plus. I was so happy seeing this as an option. I really, really appreciate this. We don't get enough full-size boards at all. And I have to say, like, I love Ducky that they did 60 and full-size. Like, so cool. Love that. This also has a tri-mode PCB, which is great. Love to see that as well. Battery life, I did inquire. They did tell me it's roughly 38 to 40 hours with no RGB on for this guy, the 60. Same thing with the full, about 38 to 40, and about 10 to 11 with RGB. Now, I want to really dig deep into this a little bit and kind of really talk about some of the more nitty-gritty stuff. And to talk about the first thing, it's the teardown process. I did open up the other one, and we can open up this one here today as well if you guys do want to see the inside. But the teardown process, to put it lightly, wasn't very fun. It is accessible. There are screws, and there's 6 screws in the back. So I use hex screws, which is nice too. No Phillips, which is great. We love to see that. Good screw. But there's plastic tabs on the inside that make this kind of, I'll use the word daunting. It's a bit of a daunting task. I did see some other reviewers, was it yesterday when the things released, when the videos released, that people broke them. I luckily didn't break my original one when I opened it, but yeah, I would say, and I would opt for them to maybe not use plastic tabs. Like, maybe I don't quite get why there's plastic tabs. Hell, I would even opt just to put 2 more screws here. But yeah, I don't really get the whole plastic tab situation. And the reason why I bring that up is because I would like the ability to kind of go into this, and then if I did want to remove one of those like 8 pieces of foam, you know, it's possible to do. And I think that would have been a really nice thing to kind of to go through and just feel confident in doing so. But that's just not possible with this right now. The switches can be lubed. Yeah, you can even redo all the switches, which is awesome. Love that. But yeah, just removing the foam didn't feel as nice as I'd hope. Like taking it apart and playing with it wasn't the best of experiences. And it's frustrating and it's time consuming, I felt like too. And especially from the, you know, person who's buying this standpoint, like you're not gonna want to break the thing you buy, right? Like you wouldn't want to do that. It's just not something that I think I would want to do here. Kind of in the same vein, because this doesn't open up, I do want to push, and this is not really a negative, but it's just another point I want to bring up. I do want to push Ducky to kind of do what everyone else has been, kind of allowing this to be more of like something that I can buy, and then maybe I can apply in like a universal 60 case. I understand there's reasonings probably why not they can't do that, and you know, all that stuff. But I do like that some of the other boards kind of offer that I can just buy a third-party case and be like, yeah, let's customize it a little bit more. Right now, because this is and this is the next point, a first generation of its kind type thing, you're not going to really get that. Being an early adopter it comes with risks, I guess. It's the best way to describe it, not I guess, to risks. While the switches, they feel great now, like, and who knows what will happen in the future, and who knows, you might want to buy the version 2, which has all the refinements of all the gripes you might have with this in 3 or 4 months. So who knows, but just, you know, I think it's a good point to bring up, like this is a first gen product, including the switches, especially the switches in the PCB here. So the other thing now is the software limitations. We can go through the software together. I feel like the software is important to talk about here, right? It is really important to talk about. So this is their software here. And I would say personally, it's missing a few things, right? Like it's pretty straightforward for the most part, but it's missing a few things. You know, it is. We'll connect the device here. From just a person using a keyboard with this much customization, we're missing one really crucial thing. And in fact, if they had this one really crucial thing, I think I could have possibly overlooked some of the other stuff. And that crucial thing is profiles. It's something I noticed right away. We have no profiles. So the reason why I noticed it was when I first set up the board, I was playing a game, and sometimes I answer emails on that same computer. And not thinking, I forgot to change, you know, the setup for my layers. And I was like, okay, let me just go to the default profile. And I sat there and I remember scratching my head being like, where is it? Is it in any of these? Am I missing something? Like, is it a button on the bottom? But yeah, if you need to change something, so if you go to the actuation settings here and you change one of your keys to, let's just say a 3.5, you have to go, like if you change like 6 keys, you have to go back in and manually slide these all back to whatever default you want to use. The no profiles thing is such a huge point that I want to bring and like drive home the Ducky. Because again, software is so important when it comes to Hall effect or inductive or any of these analog keyboards. I've been saying this forever, that these keyboards are only going to be as good as its software. It's like, this feels, I don't mean to be rude, but it's like, it feels like kind of like a beta software. Like it's not fully there yet. And in comparison to some of the competitors, the software just feels lackluster. You know, and it's just not quite there yet, right? We also have, actually, I love that I just landed on this right now, but the sensitivity just says high, medium, and low. I would have liked some way to know what these things actually do, and like what this means, sorry. Like I get what they do, but it would have been nice to see some numbers, especially again when competitors are showing, like when on the Wooting one that I used, you can just change this to a number and I understand what it does. High, medium, low feels very, again, lackluster is a good word. Other than that, the multi-point trigger was fairly simple. I felt a little convoluted though setting up. What I would have really liked to see them do with the multi-point is not just kind of creating something for yourself, then making it this MPT1 and then going into key settings and then, you know, dragging it over here. I would have actually liked to see them implement a 5th tab or something over here where they could have, if you could click Q, for example, I can't click it now, but where you could have clicked one of the keys and then also had a secondary option to talk about or to change your multi-point trigger within that specific key instead of having to do all these extra clicks and buttons like that. I felt like that could have been a really nice touch just from like a UI implementation. But yeah, the main thing was profiles. The macros are whatever. Like, I feel like we've seen this in a bunch of boards. Actuation settings, again, we only have these, so we're missing some of the... I don't know how you guys feel about this. I personally don't use these things. But like some of the other features like snap tap and stuff like that, you know, think what you want, but you know, if other people are offering them, and I don't know, I personally still think some of those features are a little bit, you know, little dicey when it comes to things. I know sometimes it's banned, but it is what it is. You guys could hate it or love it, but it just doesn't have those compared to some of its competitors. Again, I thought to myself the other day, I was like, dude, who's gonna buy this versus the competition stuff? Hear me out. I think this is rather well done for an out of box experience. For people who kind of want a do everything keyboard, but don't want to dive too much, like don't really care about, you know, the internals, or sorry, not the internals, the software rather, but kind of still want a little bit of, you know, maybe customization. So it took me a little while to really think like, okay, who's this going to be for? And it makes, you know, my answer ended up kind of being the same thing as what Ducky kind of says about their keyboards, specifically this one, which was Ducky kind of made this thing where it's like good for everyone. It's like good for people who are doing office work, like all this stuff. And I did find that I ended up really liking this for just about everything. Like, if I was a hardcore game, like someone who's really in hardcore gaming and I need the every ounce of, you know, advantage that I get, am I buying this? No, I am buying the stuff with the really good software. Because you know what, as much as I didn't like the way this sounds, I'm not listening to my keyboard, you know, while I'm playing games anyways. I don't know if you guys are people like that, and that's totally fine if you guys are, but I'm not listening to my keyboard. I'm just playing the fucking game. So I am not really, like, the sound here isn't a factor for a gaming keyboard for myself. But it is a factor for something like an office keyboard. And if someone only had the budget to buy like one thing and needed a really good out-of-box experience, yeah, I think this is a really good, you know, thing to buy over here. And I think it's positioned very well for like someone who's into gaming, someone who's into just general use, productivity, stuff like that. But again, I don't think it's like, again, someone mentioned this in chat, jack of all trades, master of none type thing. But this had to be, out of all the boards I've tried so far, one of the best out-of-box experiences I've tried. Not including software. So please keep that in mind. We're just talking about the actual piece of hardware here. But it had to be one of the best ones. Like, that's why I kept going back to it. And it's weird because I'm saying this and I'm telling you guys, like, yeah, like there's a lot of cons when it comes to software. But ultimately, I ended up reaching for this one here the most. And that's why I wanted to talk about this one here after trying all of these. Because, I don't know, I felt like I was just reaching for this one here out of all of them the most every single time, every single day. And it might be the fact that I like the way these switches felt more than the wooting. Maybe I just like the form factor of this one here. Maybe I just liked it was like the perfect weight for me to move it around and not feel like, cause this one here, dude, I know this is the zinc one, but dude, moving this around, because I do that a lot while I'm playing games. I move my keyboard around. This one here was apparently ass. I could not get this one here to be what I wanted it to be. But no, this was a nice option for that. Here's where I think Ducky needs to really focus in on, and that's refining their software. And that could also come in the form of it needs more time in market or on market. I feel like if it had more time on market, if it had refinement in software, punched in with the fact that this is a little bit less power consuming, as well as technically more precise, which again is another feature that I think I don't want people to overlook too. Dude, if this had better software, this would be a powerhouse. Excuse my language. I feel like this could be super, super, super good if this had the better software to it. So I haven't actually tried this with GMK stuff, so I'm very curious how this is going to sound with GMK. I really want to see it. I know I really shouldn't do that because it's, you know, it's not, it doesn't come stock like that, but I wanted to try. You know, this spacebar is nicer with the ABS. I did like the PBT alphas a lot more though. So here are the gaskets, the silicone tab gaskets. So another design thing, this is for Ducky's knowledge, and I don't think this truly matters for this particular keyboard at all, and it's also, it adds to the rigidity of this plate, but what I probably would have done, just so Ducky knows, is I would have moved these large tabs. So see, these are large tabs over here. I would have moved this from here to like here and here, and just left the bottom a little bit more open. Again, I don't know about rigidity for this, and I don't know if that would have caused some unnecessary flex with the PCB, but I think that could have, from a sound profile, and even to somewhat a comfort profile, it kind of creates a little bit more of a balanced spacebar sound and feel, because you're not just directly, you know, smacking your thumb against this tab over here. Here, if you guys look, you can see how the switches work on this. Show you guys a little up close to this bad boy. See this? That's how these work, and that's how they're going to measure how far you're pressing in and whatnot. It's quite interesting when you look at it up close. Do you guys want to see this without the silicone on the bottom? There's the battery there. It's covered with a piece of, I don't know, some sort of plastic piece over here to protect it from the foam, I guess. A little bit more open. I don't like the spacebar now. Interesting nonetheless, though. Thanks for really spending time testing out the board. Guys, what I'm telling you, I tried my absolute best to give you as much information as possible about this. And, I mean, not only be objective, but be very in-depth with everything that I can. Like, this was really important to me because this was something new, and it was something that's new to market. And I really liked this board, and I would have not done this if I didn't like this board. I would have picked a different analog keyboard to take a look at, but this is ultimately the one that I ended up using the most of. So I decided the Ducky was deserving of that, and I got to talk to Ducky about it, and they were really honored by the fact that I used this the most, because I told them, I'm like, hey, you know what? I actually couldn't put this down. So it was fun. It was a really, really fun experience. But bye, everybody. See ya, and talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye, everyone.